Let's talk crochet. Hey folks, it's Mary, aka MercyTriumphs, and this is Slow Crochet. This is episode 076, and today is my video about my weekly update, podcast, whatever, the things that I've been crocheting this week, anything that I've finished, anything that I'm still working on, new projects, that kind of thing. Before I get into that, I do want to say a quick thank you and hello and welcome to so many of my new subscribers. There's new folks that have come along after seeing my video about completing the entirety of my Composed of Madness Crystal over at Bag O' Day Crochet her shawl along. I have a whole video about that whole process from start to finish, even from getting in the car to go to the yarn store to completing it, and even some reflections after the fact. So a lot of y'all saw that video, and I want to thank you for all of your encouragement and your support. I kind of have this joke that I have really good taste in friends, but I would say I have really good taste in subscribers and commenters and likers, all y'all who are super encouraging and all those kind of YouTube-y things. Everyone has been so incredibly kind and incredibly supportive, and it just shows so much of your character and the things that you value, your compassion, your delight in sharing other people's joy and encouraging each other. So thank you so much for making the comment section such a lovely place to be. And thank you for being along with me on this little YouTube adventure that I am on. All right, so let's get into the things that I have been crocheting this week. Now, I was actually really concerned that I wasn't going to have anything finished this week because the projects I was working on were taking a lot longer than intended. However, I did decide, just in order to have something finished, which, you know, this is one of the, maybe the downsides or maybe just the side effects of having a channel, is it puts a little bit extra pressure maybe to like produce something. This wasn't that big of a deal, but I thought, hey, let me at least try to crank out a hat. So I did make a version of my corner to corner hat. It's recently uploaded, and this one I used a 6.0 millimeter hook on, and I used some scrap yarn from Lion Brand, some wool ease, and it's just a very simple kind of strawberry cream cheese inspired colorway. But this one will go straight to donations. I'll put a tag on it with the care instructions and the fiber content, and this one will be donated. But yes, I did actually complete something this week, so that is a good thing. Works in progress. Well, I have two. Now I just have one. But this is the MJ's Off the Hook Designs, the wrap sweater that I've been working on. And so for this one, I have decided to go ahead and make it two colors, which I kind of already had decided to do, but it's working with what I had working from stash. As of last week, I had the first panel done in the back, and now I have the second panel done, and I've started the ties. And so after this, I'm going to do the other tie, and I'm going to do the edging around the neckline, and then I will attach the sleeves. So I think what I'm going to do, since it's kind of two colored, I'm thinking that I'll make the sleeve on this side out of the kind of mottled purple. And I think I'll make the sleeve on the other side out of the cream color, and that way it looks a little bit more intentional of just having kind of some color blocking in it. I'm not sure if it's going to be more of a cap sleeve or maybe a long sleeve. The original design has like a long lacy sleeve, but yeah, I might even just start with the cap sleeve, and if I wanted to add some of the lace, I'll add that as I go. I am constrained a little bit by yarn amounts, so we'll see what we can do, but hopefully that will be finished in the next little bit, because as you know, there are more projects that I just have to get started so I can complete them. It's a beautiful cycle, isn't it? You have yarn that you just have the perfect idea for, but if I have too many things on the hook at once, it really does start to overwhelm me. So I'm not one of those people that can just go and go with infinite works in progress. I need small things to finish, bigger things to work on, and then I need to be able to breathe and enjoy the process. Breathe, Mary, as I'm filming. I'm talking so fast today. Hope y'all don't mind. But I'm excited because I did want to share one thing before I get to my big reveal of the project that I had on the thumbnail. Maybe it's the reason that you clicked on this video. But I did want to give a quick shout out to Ella over at No Catchy Name Crochet. She does these beautiful bags in her shop, and I was given some funds for Mother's Day, and I was watching one of her updates, her shop updates, and realized, you know what, there's one particular print that just really spoke to my heart, and thankfully it came in the mail yesterday. So I have my very own Ella Notions pouch. I just so responded to this bright lemon and the bright pink underneath it in that fabric. It made me think of like a strawberry lemonade. And as we're starting to get into warmer months, finally it's decided to kind of take a break from some of the real rainy seasons that we've been having here in Nashville. It's starting to actually get up into higher temperatures. So summer is upon us, and that means strawberry lemonade is on its way. And actually, to be honest, I did not have a dedicated Notions pouch. I have little bags and things, but this is beautifully made. And with that nice lining in it, this will be great for traveling, great for keeping my hooks and my yarn scissors and needles and things like that. This will be ideal. So this will actually be traveling with me coming up soon. And yeah, so thank you, Ella. I'm really glad that I could snag this in her shop. And if you're interested in any of her work, I will have not only her YouTube channel as well as her Etsy shop linked below. Just as a little side note, despite the fact that Ella and I both live in Middle Tennessee, we've never met. I've only been on this YouTube game for under a year at this point, but maybe in the future we'll be able to cross paths and I'll be able to thank her in person for this beautiful little bag. All right, time for the big reveal and the revelation of the name of my Murray Sea Otter. Now, I no longer have the book with me. I did have to return that to the library. I believe it's Animal Friends of Peek-a-Pow, and anything I mentioned, just so y'all know, will be linked in the description below. So here is my version of Murray. This is the biggest amigurumi I have ever made, and so I'm still kind of learning how to stuff things just the right amount. I feel like maybe I could have stuffed his head a little bit more. I was so nervous about putting on his face. I went over to Cassandra's channel over at Craftably Ever After, and I watched her eye tutorial. Now, she does eyebrows and like little eyelashes a little bit, and I decided not to do that on this little guy. But watching Cassandra's tutorial really made making the face a lot more approachable. I feel like that is one of the things that I get the most nervous about in doing amigurumi. I feel like I can follow patterns pretty well, but the face really makes the difference in these guys. So this little guy is completely wool. Here's his tail there. And he's stuffed with fiberfill. Now, typically I like to stuff with a combination of yarn scraps and fiberfill perhaps, but this time I just went full on fiberfill. In the pattern, Murray has a slightly shorter shirt, well, maybe a very shorter shirt, and he has more of a striped shirt look, and he also comes with some little water wings, some little tubes to wear on his arms there. But I decided that because this is not actually Murray, this is another character, I would give him some accessories that are more befitting to the name that I had picked out for him. Here he is. Oh my goodness. All right. So what is his name? Well, I'm going to give you a few minutes. All of you who notice my medieval history, medieval England map there in the back, do you recognize this figure? And do you know anyone in medieval or even pre-medieval times that might be associated with otters? All right, I won't drag this on any longer. His name is Cuthbert. And so Cuthbert is named after Saint Cuthbert, who lived in northern England, in the northeast, and he was on Holy Island on Lindisfarne. And one of the first things that I ever learned about Cuthbert was that he would go out into the North Sea and he would stand in that frigid cold water and he would pray until he felt the fire of God come. He really did have a really powerful connection to God. It was such a beautiful thing to learn about in history and learn the stories associated with him. Why otters? Well, apparently Cuthbert had the favor of God upon him, and all creation around him would recognize that he was a holy man. And so eagles would come and bring him salmon to eat, and when he would come back out of the sea, otters would come and would dry his feet. So my first introduction to St. Cuthbert came through this book, Painted Labyrinth. This is a book that was required reading when I was taking an art history course, which was about art of the Middle Ages. The Lindisfarne Gospels really captured my imagination. And so in this book, there are pictures not only from the Lindisfarne Gospels, but from other books as well. And one of them shows St. Cuthbert being on the land and then going into the sea and praying and then coming out, and you can just barely see a bit of those otters coming and drying his feet. But for my Cuthbert, I based the colors that I chose on this image right here, which here is Cuthbert in his long kind of verdigris green outfit and his long cloak of red and the little bits of embroidery on it, and he's blessing a mother and child, or perhaps healing the child, I'm not quite sure which. And then he has his hood and his little bishop's cap there. So that is the Cuthbert from the picture, from the illuminated manuscript, and here is my Cuthbert. So while I followed the pattern from Murray C. Otter, I did kind of come up with my own pattern for his cloak here. And I was inspired by a pattern for a cloak for a mouse, maybe a cape for a mouse, just to get a basic sense of how you might want to construct something like this. For this piece, I decided to go ahead and use the nice yarn. So for the red part, I used, what is this, Nashua hand knits, which is 50% wool, 25% mohair, and 25% alpaca. And this was the color geranium. And this comes in 1.75 ounces or 97 yards. And I only had a little bit left, but I thought that would be just the right amount for a cloak for my otter. And in order to do this, I thought, let me go ahead and try working some cable stitches. Now, this is the third time I've ever done cables before. I did a Christmas tree skirt with cables, I've done a scarf, and then I've done a baby blanket. But the scarf and baby blanket I made way before I started this channel. So I did have some memory. I didn't really have to go back and look up how to do cables, but basically it's single crochets and then double crochets at different angles for the cables. And then on the edges here, it's a similar situation. I did start with just a row of double crochets in case I wanted to go back through and cinch with a drawstring around the neck. I wasn't sure initially what I was going to do. I ended up going with a vintage button from my vast button collection. But so then I just did a little bit of twisting cables on each edge. And as I started out, I measured around Cuthbert's neck and then just decided where I was going to do my increases to make a symmetrical kind of cloak shape. After that, I was nearly out of red, but I still knew that I needed a hood, and I wanted to try to get a bit of that pointy kind of bishop shape. So I decided to do just that one long rectangle and stitch it up the back, and then just go as long as I needed to be able to stitch it onto the rest of the cloak. So for this, I did a double crochet herringbone stitch, and I used this yarn, which is Debbie Bliss Merino Aran. It's 50 grams, it is 78 meters, and it's 100% merino wool. So Cuthbert got a really fancy fiber cloak to go with his very kind of scratchy wool body. But I don't mind that. I think, you know, he's a bishop, he's a saint, he has a wonderful history. After his lifetime, he was buried in Lindisfarne Priory, and as I understand it, Vikings started coming along the coasts of England, and his followers, those that loved him and that were dedicated to his memory, actually took him and started wandering around England with him, carrying his coffin. There's a long story about him, but eventually he ended up not wanting to go any further, and the place that his coffin refused to move any further ended up being the site which is now Durham Cathedral. And there Cuthbert remains, and at different points in time he was dug up, and it was found that his body had not decayed at all, and that many treasures might have been put into the coffin along with him. Including some very beautiful books. I think they're still in the library in Durham, although I believe the Lindisfarne Gospels is now in London. But if you want more information about Cuthbert or about his life, I have some reference videos linked below. Or you could go over to Miss Helen over at the Mousy Mix podcast. She lives in Durham, and I'm sure she'd be able to answer any questions that you might have about Cuthbert. And honestly, the whole cloak pattern came about because I was looking up mouse patterns for a make-along that Miss Helen is doing, and I happened to find the mouse cloak instead. And so again, all those patterns and all those references will be in the video description below. So yes, that's just a little bit of a taste of the history of Cuthbert. He was a really fascinating character, and there's something in me that just really responds to some of those older Celtic traditional Christians. I've mentioned this in the past, but in the South, where I'm from and where I have deep roots of heritage, a lot of Celtic peoples actually came from Scotland, Ireland, and Wales and came and settled in the South. This was before the Civil War and things of that nature. So there is still a remaining kind of kinship to those old saints before William the Conqueror came in and the landscape of England changed and the culture changed. Now, even though Murray is a sea otter, and even though Cuthbert would have been ministered to by sea otters, river otters are all over Tennessee, and they are absolutely adorable, absolutely joyful, and they are such a delight when you ever get to run into them. I haven't seen them in the wild very frequently in my life, but I do know that they roam around a lot of the rivers and tributaries in this area. So Cuthbert also kind of has a kinship to the river otters in Tennessee as well. So that is what I've been working on this week. Cuthbert and his little cloak took quite a lot of energy, so not a lot of crochet finishes or projects per se, and as of right now I really do only have that one work in progress on the hook. Now I am going to be traveling with the family in the next little bit, so I do have some projects I'm going to take with me, and hopefully I will still be able to get another video out, kind of catch up on the things that I've been working on. But again, with traveling, it might not happen. I'll let y'all know in the community tab. But in the meantime, thank you again to everyone who's hung out with me today. Thank you to everyone who's been super supportive and encouraging on this channel. Y'all are phenomenal. I love spending time with y'all in the comments. I love just being able to be part of your lives. It really is such an honor, and I don't take that for granted. If I'm not your cup of tea, thank you so much for listening this long. I do appreciate it, and I do hope I'll see you again soon. Bye!